Hello, I hope that you're having a great day. I'm Lisa Kirsch Satawa from Kirsch Daskas Law Group, and today, as our continuing uh, broadcasts have concluded, we are going to talk about assistive technology. We're going to talk about what it is, how you know if your child needs it or can benefit from it, and what it's not, as well as how it gets incorporated into the IEP. So um, I am I like this topic because it's often one that if parents have knowledge about it, they can really do things to help their children. Where if they're deferential, it usually will be disregarded, except in extreme circumstances because it costs the district money. And I hate to say that IEP services and supports are driven by money, but especially now where because of COVID-19, our districts are really hurting financially because of budget cuts by the governor um, at, at, that went through the Michigan Department of Education. There's really a lot of different services that are going to feel the effect of that. I anticipate, but again, just like everything else that we've been talking about in the special education world, the biggest problem that we're seeing right now, and it goes for assistive technology as well, is what is the baseline? Where are children right now? And do they have up to date assessments? Assistive technology, just like speech and language and reading and everything else, has its own evaluation that can be done. So, if you think that your child could learn better or more easily from the use of assistive technology, then that should be something that's discussed at the IEP meeting. As I've always said, you should never drop bombs on the IEP team. So if you are wondering about assistive technology, send a note or email ahead of time that that's something that you think your child might need. So at least they have the right people at the meeting to address that. Usually within most schools and school districts, there is a, a assistive technology specialist. They have different names in different places, but having them at the meeting is really helpful because they can, really explain it. Um, it's important to remember that assistive technology or AT is both uh, devices and services. Uh, and it helps children with disabilities meet their IEP goals. Its goal is for children to be able to function more independently uh, and for their confidence to increase when they're engaging in learning. And so it's really, really critical to remember that that's what it is and what it isn't. It isn't a substitute for learning math and reading. It allows a child to still learn how to read and write. It just gives them support to make up for the deficit that they have in learning those materials. Um, they Reading, writing, and math are, the cornerstones of education. And usually, children who are having difficulties with reading, writing, and math also have other difficulties that could include vision, hearing, listening, communicating, or sitting still. Um, and they may have problems with mobility. They may have problems with gross motor or fine motor skills. And so that's kind of how you start this discussion is by understanding the child's strengths and how do we work around the weaknesses, because the technology is really the workaround. It's not an instead, it's assisting. And so it's to maximize accessibility. That's the best way to really think about it, is that it's this workaround. to maximize accessibility to the curriculum so that the child can learn the basic fundamental concepts that everything else is going to build upon. So that's important. So when you are in um, an IEP meeting, basically the question is, does the child need assistive technology? And the question should be, does the child need assistive technology to meet their um, academic and functional goals as defined in the IEP? The other question is, does the child need assistive technology in the regular education class or in the special education class or both? It also, there could be an inquiry if the child is going to need help on homework as well as help in the classroom. And that should also be addressed in the IEP. It the purpose or like is the long-term goal of using assistive technology is to make the child more independent. And in doing that, you're making them less dependent on teachers and parents to achieve their academic goals. So it's a good thing. Um, the law defines assistive technology as a or assistive technology devices as any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially, off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of a child with a disability. That's a big mouthful, but it's really important because there's thousands of high tech and low tech tools that can be used and considered assistive technology. A lot of times people hear technology and they immediately go to computer. Yeah, a computer is one of them, but so are hearing aids and glasses and the special pens that we've talked about, changing pencil grips, using slant boards, text readers, uh, are just a couple. Wheelchairs, dictation devices, those are all assistive technology. um, it's really important to keep the child's needs in mind and to really focus in on what your child needs help with. And so that then you figure out the workaround, the weakness. And so that is just critical. So, if a child has a deaf or hearing impaired, then some AT devices that are considered could be alerting devices that have like signal lights or ring enhancer, so that or sound activated lights, so that they know that there is something going on around them. It could be um, a systematic classroom amplification. And we've talked about that before. That's when the teacher wears, it's like a Bluetooth microphone around their neck. And then the child with the impairment wears headphones or earbuds, and literally the teacher is speaking right into the earbuds. So it's they don't have to hear. It's none of the distraction around them. It's very focused. It's very intentional, and it's communication right to that student. Closed captioning um, is another assistive technology for the deaf or hearing impaired children. And, I always think of when I'm talking about that, amplification device that goes into the student's ears, I think about, when the football coach is talking, behind the clipboard, like this, and, and they're talking to the quarterback who can hear it in his helmet of what play it's going to be. And then they're in the huddle. It's kind of the same thing. And so, really, really helpful for children. So, if your children has a specific learning disability, which means they have weaknesses in academic areas such as reading, writing, spelling, or math, um, and those children usually also have trouble with understanding directions and trouble with listening, um, organization, attention, and memory also. So if that's the case, then AT devices can include text to speech reading, word prediction, writing software, alternate alternate keyboards, graphic organizers and outlining, audio books, audio publications, information and data managers. They can have listening systems. They can have portable word processors. They can have proofreading programs, speech recognition programs, speech synthesizers, screen readers, um, talking spell checkers, electronic dictionaries. That's just to name a few. There's, just this is where, the world is your oyster, anything you can find. There's a great resource for the Essential Guide to Assistive Technology. If you go to www.greatschools.net /LD /assistive technology. And then you'll see a place where you can click on the Parent's Guide to Assistive Technology. It's a great resource by disability for just creative options. As I said before, all assistive technology must be in the IEP. Um, like everything else when we're dealing with the special ed arena, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen, you don't get it, it doesn't matter. So in addition to considering devices, assistive technology services should also be considered. And that could be an evaluation for the child's needs for assistive technology. It could be training for the child, for family members, and educators about how to use the assistive technology, instruction in how to operate or use a device, modifying or customizing a device. It could be training school personnel to use the device appropriately. Um, if you have um, children who have assistive technology products in place, it's very, very important that it's reviewed that it's being used appropriately. If there's a substitute teacher, do they know how to use it? And that are they using it properly? Are there proper instructions in the classroom for if there is a substitute teacher? What if do the parapros know how to use it? So that's really important to monitor that. And if that isn't called to the educator's attention, it could very easily go unnoticed and unreported. Parents can request an AT evaluation. It does not have to come from the school. There should be, as I mentioned, an assistive technology specialist within the district who can do that. They should be able to identify the child's needs that include, and it should be both a functional and an academic um, assessment, and it should look at things needed to be successful in school as well as successful at home. The expected date for the evaluation, it's both its commencement as well as its completion, should be in the IEP. And you can always ask for that assistive technology specialist to be at your IEP meeting to interpret the evaluation for the rest of the team. You absolutely have the right to have that person there. And as long as you ask in advance and they're part of the notice and part of the protective procedures that happen before the meeting, that should all work out very well for you. So just a couple more things here. Assistive technology is likely appropriate. Kind of the red flags of when it would be appropriate are because it allows a child to perform functions that can't be achieved without the assistive technology. It allows a child to approximate normal fluency or rate or a level of accomplishment that can't be achieved without it. So if your child, can read, but gets all, you know, caught up and can't because of anxiety about not being able to write, but they can process the information, and perhaps some of the assistive technology that will transcribe for them may make them able to accomplish the same learning as a person without the assistive technology. So it's just a workaround the disability. A, a lot of objections from the school and school district and educators and psychologists is it's going to be a crutch. They're never going to really learn how to do it. And that is an excuse. If it's the right assistive technology, if the right people are trained how to use it, then it should be a workaround, not a replacement. The assistive technology can allow a child to participate in programs or activities that otherwise would be closed to the child, um, such as music. But with the assistance of assistive technology, a deaf or hard of hearing child can participate in music because they can feel the beat, or may have other sensory skills that can allow them to enjoy that experience. Um, Theater is another one. You want assistive technologies should increase the child's endurance or ability to complete tasks that would be too laborious to be attempted on a routine basis. Remember, when kids are successful, when kids are confident, when kids believe they can do it and they're not being hindered, they usually do excel. So that's really important. It allows a child to concentrate on learning, not on the mechanical task of getting the information back to the learning source. It provides greater access to general curriculum most of the time. It supports normal social interactions with peers and adults because it levels the playing field. And it allows child to participate in restrictive educational environment and least restrictive educational environments. And that's the most important thing, really. So if the IEP team decides that your child should have a laptop, do they only get it in school? That's a question I hear all the time. And the answer is they should be able to bring the laptop home, or another laptop should be provided for home use so that they can be learning with the same methodology and the same tools at home as they are in school. A great checklist for assistive technology is from the Wisconsin Assistive Technology Initiative, and it's www.atp.ne.gov/techassist. And it's a checklist. It's really, really helpful and insightful. Obviously, I can't go through every disability and what some ideas are right now, but of course, I can on an individual basis. I love this quote from Dr. Catherine Seelman. For people without disabilities, technology makes things easier. For people with disabilities, technology makes things possible. And that's why this evaluation is so significant. It is part of the whole picture. A lot of times calculators are considered assistive technology. There's a lot of resistance from educators about calculators because that's when they say that it's a crutch and they're not going to really learn math because they can just use the calculator. You know, when I was young, the calculator was taboo and like, no, 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 you were never allowed to use calculator. But now there's calculators and on phones and on computers, and it's not, and they're being used on a regular basis, and even on some standardized tests they're allowed. So the calculator is a little touchy as to if it's a crutch or if it's assistive technology that is making the child more independent. So just, be prepared that that is one that you may have to fight a little harder and really define what it's, some parameters for how it's going to be used so that the child is still learning. If the IEP says that a child must be provided assistive technology devices or services, then they must. If it's in the IEP, it must happen. It's a violation of due process if it doesn't. If there are AT devices and services in place, it's very important that that both family members as well as teachers are trained in how to use it properly, as we just discussed. And more importantly than that is that it is not optional for a teacher to have the assistive technology in use. It is absolutely mandatory if it's in the IEP. The next, the other aspect of all of this is there's something called the Universal Design for Learning, UDL, and that's a set of principles for designing curriculum that provides all individuals with equal opportunities to learn. It's grounded in research, science, and basically it's research on learning differences and effective instructional settings. And the principles call for the curriculum to be flexible, and basically it should present or access information, concepts, and ideas. The what of learning, that should be flexible. The plan and execution of learning tasks, the how of learning should be flexible. And the child should be able to get engaged and stay engaged in learning if we're taking the anxiety piece of I can't do it, I don't know how to do it, this is overwhelming, out of the equation. Um, it really is founded on the need to kind of adjust. Um, I remember when my kids were very young, before they went to kindergarten, I was obsessed with them being ready for kindergarten. And my daughter's kindergarten teacher, when answering that question, said, "It's not your job for your child to be ready for kindergarten. It's my job to be ready for your child." And that always stuck with me. And especially when you're dealing with children with disabilities and special ed, um, it's really important to remember that, especially in this context where you're looking at kids who all come from different backgrounds. They come from different educational foundations. Some of them English isn't their first language. They all have different interests. They have different needs. They have different skills. They have different abilities, and they have different learning styles. So, because of the diversity that has been confirmed now by neuroscience and under this universal design for learning model, and they studied brain imaging technology and all this stuff, educational tasks, different environments. Very interesting. They figured out that the curriculum is often much too rigid and it's much too inflexible. So basically, um, the individual differences become barriers, and the barriers need to be broken down. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by um, bending the curriculum. And what I mean by that is that, print textbooks are the most common technology in the classroom, but print textbooks are not always the greatest way to learn for every learner. So the, you have to look at it if the textbooks need to be in different formats. Maybe they need to be spoken um, as or read out loud by either another person to the student or the student needs to read out loud. Maybe their textbook needs to be in a different color. Maybe they need a different font. Maybe they need the print to be larger, or any combination of those things. And it's just really important to have the evaluation so that you know which of those things are going to matter. And then the National Instruction Materials Accessibility Standard, NIMAS, that actually creates the national standard for print materials in accessible formats. So that's another great resource is to understand what the child's need is for materials and what alternative format is available. You can just go to the NIMAS website and get some ideas. And obviously, considering all those, ways to change the textbook, um, and if it already exists in a different format, you're more likely to get it for your child. So that is today's information about assistive technology. We're going to continue our educational series um, on tomorrow. And tomorrow we are going to talk about reviewing and revising the IEP. So I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. And if you could do me a favor and like our page and share our videos, um, that really helps us. And then we can help more children. So, with that, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And we will talk tomorrow about reviewing and revising the IEP. Bye.